Good afternoon, everyone. On June 4th, 2023, at approximately 03:24 hours, Pennsylvania State Police in Philadelphia were dispatched to I-95 in the area of Penn's Landing for numerous vehicles and pedestrians illegally blocking the highway for a car meetup. The vehicles were reported to be racing and doing burnouts and drifting. There were also reports of shots fired, with that information being related to those responding. Similar incidents have been reported earlier in the evening with the Pennsylvania State Police requested to assist. To expound on that, we had been receiving emails from the Philadelphia Office of Emergency Management, keeping us informed of what was occurring on the surface streets within the city, starting probably a little bit before midnight. Upon arrival, troopers found a significant number of vehicles illegally blocking the lanes, engaged in activity previously described, and numerous pedestrians outside of their vehicles spectating. Two of our members observed an black Audi S4 parked on the shoulder of I-95 with its license plate completely obscured. Four subjects then approached the vehicle and entered it. Troopers positioned their vehicle in front of the Audi and exited their vehicle on foot. While on foot, the operator of the Audi, later identified as Anthony Allegrini Jr, 18 years of age from Delaware County, Pennsylvania, failed to yield and struck the two troopers. One trooper then discharged his service pistol through the front windshield and struck Allegrini, who was seated in the driver's seat. Allegrini was pronounced dead on the scene by the Philadelphia Fire Department medics. The two troopers suffered minor injuries. The recklessness of these car meetups and the risk they pose to those involved, as well as those who happen to come upon them, especially on I-95, one of the most traveled roadways within the Commonwealth, cannot be underestimated. We make traffic stops on these roadways and block lanes of travel on a daily basis. We use special equipment and vehicles, emergency lighting and message boards to do so safely. Yet with all this available to us, less than 18 months ago, two troopers were killed on this very roadway just a few miles away from where this occurred. We've had countless troopers injured as a result of them or their vehicles being struck while handling incidents on the highway. These groups just stop their vehicles with hazard flashers on or strobes and hope for the best, while trapping innocent families and bystanders on the highway in the line of danger. People who could be traveling from as far away as Maine or Florida, or from one area of Philadelphia to another. It would just take one intoxicated or distracted driver to be traveling on the roadway for a tragedy to occur, similar to what we experienced in March of 2022. However, this is just another example of the lawless culture which has become the norm for the people traveling on our roadways. On almost a daily basis, people fail to yield to police and flee from traffic stops. And they do so for various reasons, as minor as to avoid a summary traffic violation ticket, or reasons as serious as felony criminal offense. There is a run-first mindset which places those fleeing and those on the roadway at risk. We've also experienced an uptick in shootings on the highways. In 2022, we investigated more than 3 times the amount of shootings we investigated in 2021, with 2023 on pace to break that mark. If this culmination of behaviors continues, those involved, as well as those who are unfortunately in the presence of it, will continue to be put at risk. As an agency, we will continue to do our best to ensure the safety and well-being of all those who we encounter and those affected by their actions. Please let me take this opportunity to thank the Philadelphia Police Department for their continued support, not only during this incident yesterday, but during our daily operations, and to the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office for their assistance as we investigate this incident. I'm going to turn it over to the District Attorney, Larry Krasner.
Are you going to answer questions at some point, sir?
At the end, sir.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. Standing with me today are 2 members of the DA's Special Investigations Unit. One is Vinny Corrigan, who is probably known to many of you. We also have Josh Barnett. Mr. Barnett was actually on the scene fulfilling one of our most important obligations, and that obligation is to independently investigate officer-involved shootings of different types. We stand here, number one, grateful to the state police and to PPD for our continuing partnership as we try to address a lot of different public safety issues that we face in Philadelphia and in this area. But we also stand here in our capacity as independent investigators of what occurred. Let me reiterate, we are grateful for the cooperation that we have received and will be receiving in the future, both from the state police and also from PPD, for one simple reason: the truth matters. the truth matters. We don't know all the details yet. We won't know them until we have all available information, be that additional video. And we ask anyone out there who has additional video, please come forward with it so we can see it. Or be that additional witnesses, forensics, that we will need. There will come a time when we know what happened, and whatever flows from that or does not flow from that will be based on the truth. I don't know that there's anything more important in a situation like this than everyone involved and everyone uninvolved understanding that we will do whatever we can to get the truth, that any legal consequence, if there is any legal consequence in civil court or in criminal court, will flow from what the truth is. Now, unfortunately, that means that in the middle of an investigation that needs to have integrity, we cannot talk too much about what we know so far because it's incomplete. There are a lot of things and a lot of people that have to be communicating with us before we will know more. So I'm going to respectfully ask all of you to understand it's not that we don't want to say more. It's that it would be harmful to the integrity of this investigation if we said more without having the full universe of information and without having carefully evaluated it every way that we can. I have worked and partnered with PSP for quite some time. Among other things, we have a very interesting history of state police solving some closed homicides through some amazing work that was done decades after the homicides occurred. And when we saw the truth there, we were ready, willing, and able to prosecute, and we did, based upon that information. I have had, in my opinion, an excellent partnership with our police commissioner in terms of many different issues that the city confronts and that PPD confronts. My heart goes out to law enforcement when they try to wrap their arms around drifting, around street racing, around these substantial challenges where the tools in their toolbox have to be used so carefully because there's such a danger that things could get even worse if they simply engage in pursuits of vehicles. So I know what they're up against. We've been on these calls collectively now for a few years. They're up against a lot. They do everything they can to make the streets safer. And anybody who's thinking about street racing or drifting, you got to cut it out. If you come to my attention, you're going to be in a jail cell. If you don't cut it out, you're going to be dealing with the consequences of what you do. And I say that on the general topic of people who are violating the law on the streets in vehicles of all types. You've got to cut it out. But separate and apart from that, I'm grateful for the partnership that we've had with PPD and also with PSP in terms of other issues, and I look forward to their assistance as we do everything in our power to get at the truth, to restore the public trust so that everyone involved directly and everyone who is interested knows they got the truth and the legal consequences, if any, will flow from the truth. It is my pleasure at this time to introduce our police commissioner, Daniel Outlaw.
Good afternoon. So I have quite a bit of information to cover. I won't take up all of the time, and then I guess we'll open it for questions. But let me start by saying it was already alluded to that the behavior that we saw over the weekend is not only unacceptable, but it will not be tolerated. The type of behavior exhibited at these car meets over the weekend were just outrageous, quite frankly. Property was destroyed, officers and civilians were assaulted, and countless individuals had their lives put at risk because of the behavior that we witnessed. This past weekend, our department had assigned dozens of officers to two separate what we call car meet or ATV dirt bike details in our two regional operation commands, our Rock North and Rock South. The purpose of these details, or those details, is to focus on the large, dangerous vehicular gatherings that have been forming throughout our city that we typically know occurs when the weather gets warmer. And a key part of these programs is having our officers in our criminal intelligence unit glean data in order to learn of these events prior to their formation, which we have been pretty successful in doing in the past. Unfortunately, we know we cannot prevent all of them, or we don't always know about all of them in advance. And even when we have the information, sometimes it becomes a numbers game when safely stopping the events in their tracks is not immediately feasible due to the risks of officer and citizen safety, which is what was described previously. This weekend, there were several particular meetups that were highly concerning, and I'm just going to go through each one of them with a little bit of detail. Shortly after 1 a.m. in the intersection of Bustleton Ave and Philmont Ave in the far northeast, motorists took over the intersection along with a crowd of hundreds of pedestrians. So you have vehicles and pedestrians. Officers from our car meet detail quickly arrived. However, dozens of individuals from the crowd began to throw objects at their vehicles, including bricks. Those officers had to retreat and await the arrival of additional officers to assist in dispersing the crowd. Fortunately, our officers were uninjured in this incident. However, we have viewed multiple videos of this incident, one of which depicts a pedestrian being physically assaulted by participants of the event. We believe that the offender in this incident was also involved in another meetup earlier that occurred at the Boulevard and Torresdale Avenue. We are actively seeking a complainant on this assault, and we are working to identify the offender for his actions at both of these incidents. Next, around the same time, on the 500 block of Byberry Road, 7th District officers were responded to reports of a drag racing in the area. Upon arrival, there were several participating vehicles that were parked in a gas station at that location. As one officer pulled into the gas station, an operator of a Dodge Charger backed into his police car and then drove around several other responding police cars before fleeing into Montgomery County. Fortunately, there weren't any injuries to our officers. Later, at approximately 2:30 at Broad and York Streets, officers responded to a report of gunshots and drag racers in the area. When they arrived, they came upon vehicles racing, with participants setting off fireworks in the vicinity. As the officers approached in their police vehicles, or RPCs, several individuals in the crowd began throwing flower pots and other debris at the officers, shattering the windshield of one of our vehicles. And fortunately, in that incident, no one was injured. The last incident I want to highlight was on the 2400 block of North Broad at approximately 3 a.m. Calls were coming out in the area, and one of our car meet officers came upon an intoxicated male who was attempting to flee in his vehicle. As the officer attempted to investigate this male, the offender became irate and physically attacked our officer. Our officer was able to take him into custody, but suffered injuries during this attack. Let me say this again. This is totally unacceptable. And I'm beyond sickened, and I'm outraged that so many people think that it's okay to partake in this type of criminal behavior. We all want to make very crystally clear, if anyone was participating in this activity, do not think for one moment that you got away with it. We are not done. And that you not being held accountable is something that's going to continue. This is not over. Rest assured, there are cameras everywhere. There are mountains and mountains of evidence to go through, and we are going to use that evidence to make arrests where warranted. This isn't a game, and these are not victimless crimes. Laws are being broken, communities are being terrorized, and people are getting hurt. Those involved need to be held accountable. I want to thank all of our law enforcement partners for their commitment in mitigating this dangerous behavior. And I'll say again, one of the best ways for us to prevent these types of incidents is for us to learn about them before they form up and get out of hand. Incidents just like the ones experienced this weekend never took place because of tips from the public and behind-the-scenes work of our investigators. In fact, we are aware of at least 2 that were averted later on Sunday or yesterday for that very reason. So if anyone has any information about what happened this past weekend or any upcoming similar events, please call or text our tip line at 215-686-TIPS, and you can remain anonymous. I'm going to close with that, but if there are any specific questions about this weekend's incidents, we have members of my executive team available that can assist. Are we opening up for questions now? We good? All right.
Do you think, Commissioner, that you had enough, despite the number of people you had? Did you have enough to handle what you saw?
I don't think so. Not on Saturday. So the difference between Saturday and Sunday was that Sunday we had intelligence to allow us to get ahead of and prevent what occurred on Saturday. Or I'm getting the days mixed up. I'm thinking late Saturday night, but early Saturday morning. So for late Saturday night's events or early Sunday morning's events, we didn't have any intelligence that would indicate that these car meetups were going to happen. What we had were the details that we already had in place that we were, going to have throughout the summer anyway. So with the numbers that we had already assigned, and then at any given time, if you have 500 random people show up in one location, you're pulling resources from other parts of the city, and that's what we had to do.
How many arrests, how many people were arrested at any of these car meets?
This is DC Frank Benor. He can get you that info.
Sure. As far as I'm concerned, the commissioner spoke about an individual arrested at the 2300 North Broad incident. He was charged with assault and related charges. He's a 19-year-old lives outside the city. We do have, and as the commissioner said, we're going through hours of social media video, private cameras, and body-worn camera. We do have other people we believe are identified. However, we have more investigative work to do, and then we will petition the district attorney to see what we have as far as charges.
So at this moment, just one arrest from
Just
the
one.
weekend?
Right.
What can you do to be a deterrent? Can you tow cars? What makes anybody stop?
Isn't that, just to piggyback on that, didn't the Pennsylvania legislature give municipalities like the Philadelphia Police Department and other PDs across the state more teeth, to put it frankly, to confiscate vehicles, right? And charge higher fines for these kinds of incidents?
So again, towing cars is a deterrent, but has not necessarily been a deterrent. A lot of questions would come up around, well, why not just block the vehicles in? That doesn't always work. That's how one of the officers' patrol vehicles got rammed the other night. What we're finding is, and then we also hear, well, what if the city offered sanctioned events for things like this? Those who are intent on committing this type of destruction are going to do it regardless. They don't care about their cars being towed. They don't care about whether or not a street is blocked. So we are going to continue to do what we've done and very proactively work with our council people. We're going to be supportive in offering suggestions around legislation to help us find additional ways, and then also continue to do research to find out what are some of the effective tools that help with this. One of the challenges are, though, that, again, we cannot put officer safety, citizen safety, or even bystander safety, everybody's safety at risk because it's a very, very dangerous situation, especially when we're dealing with, a very heavy vehicle, high levels of speed, people standing around, and, our one action could put other things in motion that could put other people in danger. So, again, we're utilizing everything that we have, but what we're talking about here is an unplanned event, and out of nowhere, 500 people showing up, and then we're being reactive as opposed to being proactive. It was just what we did last night, and we saw that averted a lot of the things that they were trying to do, come back and do on the second day.
Commissioner, so just to clarify, the Sunday morning's event where Allegrini was fatally shot, the PPD did not have prior knowledge of that particular meetup?
We did not.
And therefore, PPD was not able to mobilize as quickly. So, like you said, is reactive.
That is correct. We were reactive, and of course, if we known, that these meetups were being planned, we would have done everything that we can to have more officers out there, more police vehicles out there, increase our visibility, and to get a lot of those popular areas cordoned off or blocked off before the activity could even begin. Sam.
Can you provide any additional information about where Mr. Allegrini was located at the time that the PA state trooper fired the shots?
I'm not addressing.
Can I keep it a question for you?
Sorry.
Sure.
What we're seeing is some of these drivers coming in from the suburban areas of the other counties into Philadelphia. What's your message to people that they think they can come in here and do whatever they want?
I think I already gave my message. Stay home. You know, we don't tolerate that here. And I think that people have gotten this sense that Philadelphia is the place to come, do whatever I want, trash it up, you know, create all these safety issues for the residents here or people that want to come here and be here safely and leave. And that's unacceptable. That's not what we stand for. And that's why I want to make very clear that just because you think we don't have you in custody today or you haven't been cited today, we're going through a lot of evidence right now, and we'll find a way to come back and circle around and find you.
Two-part question, Commissioner. First part is, if you say they're intent on doing it no matter what, how do you overcome that eventually? And secondly, on Saturday night, anybody on the force, anybody monitoring social media to try to determine next moves of this group? And related to that, can you...
What's the first question again?
first question
These two-part
is-
questions, you lose me.
I apologize. If they're intent on doing this anyway, how do you overcome that?
I think we have to be consistent. So, I mean, this is something that we're beginning to see here, but other parts of the country have experienced a lot, and they're still trying to figure it out. Because, again, the safety part, citizen safety, officer safety, bystander safety, all of that is something we have to take into account. I think deterrents are important, whether it's towing cars, whether it works for some people or not, being consistent with identifying individuals and going back and ensuring that there's some accountability and publicizing that, I think also serves as a deterrent, but we have to stay on it and not throw our hands up and say, oh, well, this is just the way it is and the way it's going to be. We have to let them know that we're going to keep our foot on the gas. Second question was,
thank you.
yes. So again, once we're caught off guard initially, then yes, we're checking social media. We're doing everything that we can to find out if there's any way to nip it in the bud. I mean, this lasted for a period of 3 to 4 hours. I think had we not finally intervened, we could have been going on for quite some time. And again, because of the fact we did begin looking specifically for additional activity for this, the following day we didn't see what we saw the day before because we were able to get ahead of it. I can take two more.
One last question on,
It's been difficult to the city to deal with the ATVs, motorbikes, and non-car races. How can you guarantee to the community that the outcome this time is going to be different?
Well, I think that kind of goes with the question over here. So I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I think what's important for our community to know is that we're going to be consistent. So we're not sitting back, throwing our hands up and saying, you know what, this is hard. We don't know how we can address it. We will continue to be proactive. We will continue to enforce the laws that are in the books. We are going to continue to be proactive and work with the legislative body to identify creative ways and safe ways so we can pick people off in advance or have tools in our tool belt if we can't take them into custody or make citations right then and there on scene, that we can come back after the fact and ensure that there's accountability and we're presenting a strong case for prosecution.
Just a really simple question. Do any of these seem connected? Like, was it one group that was maybe moving to different parts of the city?
We think that some of the same people were involved, but because also we know that there were some other things that happened outside of the city around the same time, there were different groups. So I think the answer is yes and no. I don't think it was just one group only going from place to place to place. I think it was just some core people or core individuals that were going from place to place, but then also at the same time in other parts of, outside of the city, it was similar activity that was going on as well, unfortunately.
One of the core individuals involved?
What's that?
Was Allegrini one of those?
Oh, I wouldn't speak to that.
The only other thing is I was going to say that in each one of these cases or in each one of these incidents, you had mentioned that they had thrown bricks at the cops or flower pots at the cop cars or something like that. Anything you want to say just about the kind of throwing or doing something that's seemingly violent against essentially the law?
But I think that speaks to the types of individuals that we're dealing with here, right? So this is beyond active or passive resistance. This is very clear forms of active resistance and making it very clear that we are not going to abide by your orders. I mean, we can ask you nicely all day, but this is an example of how and why force escalates. And someone showing that I'm going to throw a brick at your window or I'm going to ram my vehicle into your patrol vehicle with lights on and you're very clearly identified as a police officer, this just tells you the mindset of the individuals and now groups of individuals that we're dealing with. And that's why you see us react in the way that we do. It's a very delicate situation. But again, I will tell you, it will not be tolerated. It absolutely will not be tolerated. The safety of our officers and anyone who wants to visit the city or be and exist in the city is paramount. That's what's most important, and we're going to do what we can to ensure that it's upheld. Thanks, folks.
Commissioner, did OEM give you a warning prior to the weekend that these were being planned and would likely happen? OEM prior to the weekend, a warning or an alert?
I would have to go back and check everything. I will tell you that we planned for a lot of things. There was an uptick in violence in certain parts of the city, certain districts. There was obviously the festivals, the parades. There were a lot of things going on. So I believe that we had a pretty strong hand on, on those things. And again, having the car meet details was a just in case. But whether or not specific on that, we'll have to circle back and give you that information.
Real quickly, would you mind, for State Police, giving us your first and last name and pronunciation and title?
Sure. Gerard McShay, Gerard, MCSAGA. I'm the captain, commanding officer of Troop K, Philadelphia.
Captain, if you can, and this, my question really speaks to a piece of video, cell phone video that's out there that the DA's office, I'm sure, is looking at as part of their investigation, that shows a car driving by the scene, the body.
Someone outside the vehicle?
Yes, and then a trooper at one point with his gun drawn, and then to the car passing by. In the video, we see, it appears to show the driver who was killed, Allegrini, laying down far away from his Audi and next to the state police
cruiser.
Car. Is that proper protocol when someone has been shot to be pulled out of the vehicle, to be unattended? Nobody appeared to be tending to him, and you could see his legs and arms moving up and down.
So as far as protocol, I mean, there are times when people are removed from a vehicle for treatment purposes. I can't get into this specific incident, so it would not be uncommon for someone to be removed for treatment purposes. I understand you said that was not in this one. It was not the case. It was not what was seen. Obviously I can't go into this one just because of the active investigation, but I will say we are collecting all this video surveillance or anything that's available to us. We have the one you're speaking about, maybe even different versions of the same thing that you have, but we're also collecting everything, things that occurred prior to that. So, I mean, we do welcome all video evidence with that. In regards to the trooper's actions, I can't speak to that. That'll come after the decision.
Sure, and I understand you can't talk specifics, but is it fair to say that troopers can render aid if someone is not deceased yet?
They absolutely can, but then there's also circumstances you have to take into account, the volatileness of the situation and what's going on around them. There is a total officer safety awareness and what is actually within those circumstances that you have to take into account. Again, I'm not going to go into specifics, but it does go beyond just rendering aid. You have to make sure everyone else is safe as well.
Captain, did he get out of the vehicle under his own power?
What's that?
Did he leave the
Can't
car?
speak about that, sir.
Is it on body worn?
We don't have body worn cameras, sir.
Captain,
Do you have dash cam?
where were
We have dash cam.
where were the troopers struck? Where were they injured? You said there was minor injuries. And
To the legs.
To the legs?
Legs.
Both of them.
Both
To
of
the
them.
legs. And that was how long after they arrived? You said it was 3:24 a.m.
Sorry, I don't know that specific time.
So Allegrini drove into them.
Active investigation.
Was his car originally approached because of the tag, the unmarked?
So we haven't had a chance to interview the troopers at this point. As part of our department, when you're involved in a serious incident like this, a critical incident, you're given administrative leave. Interviews are going to be scheduled to be done in the near future. So I can't speak as to exactly why they approached that vehicle.
Was an ambulance called?
Excuse me?
Was an ambulance called for the?
Yes, immediately.
And how long did it take for the ambulance?
I do not know. I apologize.
Commands given, can you say what the troopers were saying to trying to get the attention of the driver?
I cannot. Not with an active investigation.
When are state troopers
1 second,
allowed
please.
to shoot at a moving vehicle? When are they allowed to actually fire on a vehicle as they did in this instance, which you've told us?
There's no specific, I wouldn't say there's no specific regulation saying it, but if you're in the fear of death or bodily injury, or you believe somebody else present on scene could be in fear or at risk of death or bodily injury, deadly force would be appropriate.
Going off that question, was Allegrini shot while driving?
Can't answer that due to the active investigation.
Were the troopers physically standing on the roadway, or were they in their vehicle when it was struck?
Outside of the vehicle,
They were,
and their feet.
okay.
And injuries.
1 second.
Can you detail the steps of the investigation and the rough timeline?
The timeline is tough. I mean, at this point, given all the cell phone footage and all the social media aspect of this, we are scrubbing the internet to get everything we can. Obviously, there's going to be videos popping up for weeks that are going to depict or may show something that may, change the way we think about things. At this point, we welcome anyone that wants to provide anything to us. Please do. We want a total package before we present it or as we present it to the district attorney's office. The timeline's just going to depend on some of that stuff coming in. Obviously, as we get stuff and after we do interviews, we'll be able to provide something, but until that's completed, there's really no timeline.
Captain, two questions.
What does that mean, yield? That means what, stop?
Failed to stop his vehicle.
Two questions. In terms of the troopers' injuries, you say they had minor injuries to the legs. Were they treated on scene? Did they have to go to the hospital?
Treated after the fact.
Were they treated right there on scene, or did they have to go to the hospital?
Probably, I don't know, I shouldn't answer. I don't know specifically. I apologize.
And then my other question is, I suppose as it relates to the video that you're looking at, you said you're actively seeking any video people have. No body cam. There is dash cam. Does the dash cam video show this incident?
I can't speak to what the dash cam with the active investigation, but no, we do not have body cameras at this time. Not state police.
It is your staff, Allegrini Jr.
One moment.
I'm just unfamiliar with the state police's internal affairs. Like, how do you all deal with that? We know how the Philadelphia police. How do you deal with investigating your own troopers?
Okay. So when we have an investigation like this, an officer-involved shooting, we bring in investigators from a different station just to remove any familiarity between them and the investigators. They step in, they investigate, present it to the district attorney's office. Our internal affairs almost mirrors that, sees what's going on, collects information, prepares himself for an administrative action after everything is completed. But that's not until we get a clearance or a prosecutorial decision from the district attorney's office.
And then will you name also the state troopers?
At the end of this, if they are alleged of any wrongdoing, their names would obviously be released.
But not until then?
Not until then. Nothing at this point, no. For the safety of the troopers, we've already had issues with the news release where we identified the trooper investigating, and people have been seeking out his information, trying to put it there on the public and make it known to other people on social media. So it's obviously a concern for the officer involved.
What's the status of the troopers? Are they on leave? What's the
administrative leave? We get 72 hours administrative leave. At that point, you get to come back. We'll do the interview. Pending a clearance, we will be on limited duty or administrative duties. Pending a decision from the district attorney.
Captain, you said failed to yield as they were as Allegrini was driving towards the officers.
Active investigation.
And how many times did the one officer shoot Allegrini?
At this point, we're only aware of one shot. We feel pretty confident that it was one discharge.
And where on his body was it?
That'll come out throughout the investigation.
And again, it's your stance that he was in the driver's seat at the time of the shooting.
Based on physical evidence we have at the scene, witness statements, and even some video evidence obtained, yes, we were very confident.
You cannot say why his body ended up feet in front of that parked Audi.
I cannot.
And was that Audi on your radar before you showed up to that
No.
incident? Okay.
At the time of the shooting, if you were to expand our view, right, what was still going on, what wasn't going on, were people fleeing? Have troopers who were responding, did they come upon this show that was going on, or this drag racing event?
A very similar scene that was described by Commissioner Outlaw. I mean, it was a chaotic scene. There was northbound and southbound shutdown, thousands of people standing on the roadway, vehicles doing donuts, fireworks being set off. It was chaotic.
The shooter, the state trooper who fires, was not one who was hit, correct?
As one of the injured officers?
The officer, the state trooper who fires the shot that strikes the driver. He's not one of the men who were hit. He is
one of the members that was injured.
He is one of them.
Yes, sir.
Were the passengers of the Audi taken into custody as well?
They were detained. They were identified and obviously part of the investigation at this point. No decision on charges or anything of that nature.
How many troopers did you have out there at the time?
Of the shooting, 2. Actually, other ones were responding along with Philadelphia police officers. These were just the first 2 that arrived on scene.
I'm sorry. And you also said that, so the command was failed to yield. He failed to yield.
Yes.
Failed to yield means he failed to stop.
Correct.
So he's moving at the time. If you're telling him to stop, and he doesn't stop, and you fire, he's moving at the time you fire on him.
He failed to yield, sir. That's the statement that we're given.
And he hit them with his car.
They received injuries at some point during the incident.
Was he taking part in the drag racing? And
Active
harassing?
investigation. We're not going to, allude to what he was doing.
And is it just one officer who's been put on leave or both the officers?
Both officers. Even when you witness a critical incident like this, you get put on administrative leave. Just, I think, the process and, for mental health sake.
There's obviously a lot of videos out there and a lot of speculation. Anything else you'd want to say to the public about, those glimpses of video that people are seeing right now?
It's hard to put a whole story together off a glimpse of video. You will not know the whole story if you see something after it occurred, before it occurred. It's putting the piece together. And, as, an agency, as we investigate this, that's what we're doing. We're collecting everything so that we have that clear picture of what occurred, so the truth can be discovered, as the district attorney said, and then we will present that to the district attorney so that a decision can be made.
This is a broader question, but why don't you have body camera?
We're in the process of getting body cameras. I just know that we are moving towards that. It is in place, but we just haven't gone there yet.
Is it that no state police in Pennsylvania have body cameras, or just certain troops have it, or?
At this point, no, but I know they will be rolling out soon.
So no one in the state of Pennsylvania, no trooper has a body camera?
Not at this moment, I don't believe. I know it is coming out in the future, and it's a slow rollout. The funding is there,
Sure.
100%, and this is across the state. It takes a while to outfit, an agency across the state, but we are moving to that, but we aren't there yet.
Are you joined
One
by
last question.
Are you joined by Philadelphia police out there at the time? Are there Philadelphia officers out with your troopers at the time?
Not at the time of the shooting. Obviously they were responding. They are sometimes our biggest help out there, and they were coming out in full force to help support us and control that incident. But at the time the shooting occurred, they were not on scene.
And these were troopers. These were not commanding officers in any way. These are both state troopers?
2 state troopers working a midnight shift.
So they were the only law enforcement that was there
At the scene. There may have been some on the other side of 95. This was, underneath the bridges there.
Yeah.
There's a wall in between.
Yep.
There were some on the other side, but